fans, it's time for Flames Unfiltered, your spot for Calgary Flames hockey talk. Well, a disastrous 1 point in Arizona is not enough. Starting to believe it's the final nail in the coffin. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Flames Unfiltered, hosted by Kyle Lewis and Brad Burud. As we are here on a day is it? Wednesday afternoon, and it's not a happy day in Calgary at all.
No, not in the least.
This is a freaking roller coaster, and it just keeps happening. We get our hopes up just a little bit because the Ottawa game got my hopes up a little bit. Only to have it down.
Actually. It didn't, only because I knew Ottawa was struggling a lot and they played the night before. So I took that with a grain of salt. But I know what you mean. It was nice to see him put up 5 goals, but it's like...
Well, and you know what? I thought, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. I just thought we looked more cohesive that night.
It'd be hard to look less cohesive than they did last night.
Oh, my God. Was it bad? And last night, the Flames broke a record. Well, they're continuing to break a record as they suffer their 19th loss of the season when outshooting their opponents by 10 or more.
Isn't it 20th?
Yeah, excuse me, 20th. Yep, last night was 20. I didn't even update this. It doesn't matter anymore. Like, we broke it at 19, now we're at 20. Yeah.
I feel bad for everybody watching this on YouTube because they can see it in our faces. Like, this is just...
I mean, I love doing this show, and I love talking hockey, but it's freaking hard when the team's given us the performances that they've given us. It makes it hard to not look like we're one of the million Flames Debbie Downers right now. I mean, and because we are, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
It's also relative to expectations. Like, I was talking to a Habs fan that I work with today, and he was like, going on, oh, it could be worse, it could be a Habs fan. That actually sounds a hell of a lot better right now. You guys were supposed to suck, and you suck. You're going to have a good draft, and life goes on. Now, they could have managed their assets better at the trade deadline, in my opinion. But whatever the case, Calgary was supposed to be good, and they are terrible, but not so terrible that we have a really good draft to look forward to. Terrible that will once again be mediocre, is how it would seem.
No, but God, am I digging deep here for bright spots here? This one's...
Try me. Hit me with some positivity. Be that ray of sunshine in my day, Brad.
Oh, man. I don't know if I can do it today, Kyle. I'm just being honest with you. I think one of the things that got me out of bed this morning was the fact that this team has a huge tendency to be good and then suck shit and then be good. It's part of the Calgary way, isn't it? Now, like, are we winning the Pacific next year? Are we favorites already in Vegas for winning the Pacific next year?
Is that a joke?
Yes, but yes and no. I mean, we just tend to do that, though, don't we? Because, like, Kyle, think about this. Before last season, like, I didn't give the Flames a whole lot of hope. I thought they would be like we are this year, borderline, right?
Yep.
And then they go out and they freaking are awesome, one of the best, and win the Pacific. And now this year we get our hopes up, right? Hey, we're going to do that again. We won the whole West. Yeah, we won the whole freaking conference.
Yeah.
And now they got our hopes up this year.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we bounce back next year? Not
without some serious changes. I mean, not necessarily in terms of personnel, but personnel usage. I mean, as we've looking into that a little bit more, but there's some guys that will be leaving undoubtedly, and there's some guys that will be playing more prominent roles going forward. And yeah, you wanted some good news though. Before we get the show going here, let's talk a little bit about good news. I couldn't help but feel a little bit happier the other night when I saw Chris Snow skating. Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't know where you were going with this, but yeah, that's fantastic.
That's truly good news. And really it almost puts this rest of this in perspective. It's like, as much as I live and die how the Calgary Flames are going, and my family would probably be able to vouch for my attitude most days based off of a win or a loss, which is sad. I mean, really, we need to take a look at like what Chris Snow is doing and how that family and what they're dealing with. And I don't know. I also thought it was a good note last night that the Vegas Golden Knights had a 50-50 raffle, and everything went to in honor of Chris Snow to the ALS fight against that. And I mean, just a lot of good things. And hockey's is a good sport where there's a lot of good people. So that's your good news, Kyle. I got nothing after that now. So prepare for about 44 minutes of
agony.
Truth. So on the show today, we're going to recap 3 games, 1 good one, 2 crappy ones. We'll discuss the Wranglers. That's good news. Some asset management, not good news. Pelletier's production. I don't know what that is. And then to the major topics, we'll talk about the big guns and their lack of production this year, why it is, why we think it is, what do we have to look forward to in that? Is hope gone? Is this team done dancing? We'll go through the numbers, break that down just a little bit, and then we'll wrap with a preview of a very busy week for the Flames. 4 games ahead before we talk next week. It's time for another edition of Flames Unfiltered. All right, Kyle, let's start with Anaheim and Calgary on Saturday night, or Friday night. This game I want to erase from my memory.
I think you used a similar line on the last show in regards to the Minnesota.
Yeah, I did.
Same score. Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. It's not even just an just an embarrassing effort. Like for a team that's was fortunate enough to be right in the thick of a playoff race, and just to squander that game like at home against a significantly weaker opponent. Like, does anything encapsulate our season thus far more than that?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Our only goal was Michael Backlund, and he seems to be the only player.
Jeez, I forgot I thought they got shut out. I just misspoke. That's how much I've repressed that game memory. I forgot they had a goal.
Scored first. We had a 1-0 lead. We had a 1-0 lead. Not that but Backlund just seems to be the only guy right now that's consistently good.
You see it all over Twitter. Most days he should be the captain of this team.
I said it before the season started that he was my vote.
It's proven you right. I was right about Dylan Dubé having a career year, maybe not as good as I would have hoped, but you're right about Backlund should have been captain. There's no doubt about that.
And not even so much just because of his production, but just he is consistently good. And when you have guys like, I believe it was Uyghur this week in his post-gamer said that Backlund's is the leader of this team. He said it in the presser. And when you have guys, teammates saying that, I don't know. And I think he probably will be named captain of this team, not this year, but probably next year. We'll see what happens there. But he's got a contract coming up too, so we got to see how that all plays out. But let's fast forward over to Sunday. Ottawa comes to town. And Ottawa is reeling and struggling miserably. They were on a back-to-back, I believe, was it Edmonton? No, not Edmonton. With Vancouver. They got beat by Vancouver pretty handily, too.
Yeah.
It
wasn't pretty for them.
And, we only allowed 1 goal that night, and the only goal was actually Michael Backlund's fault. As we speak the praises of Backlund, he lets us down this game, and, yeah.
Had a 5-1 game, though. We can live with that, right?
It would have been a shutout, though, and I thought about you that night, Kyle, because I know how important those are to you. And
you just have to have a few. If you don't have a few shutouts, you're not a good hockey team. I've never seen a good hockey team doesn't have any shutouts. I'll put it that way.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
But I mean, it was a good all-around effort. Like I said before we started recording, Ottawa was reeling. Ottawa come off back-to-back Western road trip for them as an Eastern team. So a lot of things that worked in Calgary's favor, but it still was the type of game Calgary should have had, much like they should have had the night before against Anaheim. And in the following game, which is my segue into the next outing and how that went.
I want to make one point before we roll on to the Arizona game. I thought one thing that looked different to me, and this is what gave me hope, albeit false hope. I thought the defensive, like the way the defense were activating in the Ottawa game was something we hadn't seen since early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at that stretch of wins at the beginning of the season, I have a book. I don't have it sitting next to me here, but I have a book, and it's just a notebook, and I write notes about every game, right? And I paged back to the beginning of the year when we were on that little run when we thought we were going to win the Stanley Cup at the beginning of the year. And a lot of the notes I wrote about was how active the defense were in creating offense and joining in the rush. And then that went away. I didn't comment on that for like friggin' 55 games. And those were the 55 games that we weren't good. And then in the Ottawa game, I mean, we had goals from Hannafin and Anderson, and it just seemed like we were more of a cohesive 5-player team out there, and we were moving the puck quicker, getting out of our zone quicker with a quick pass, and it just was flowing better. So I started to get hope. I was like, well, hey, maybe Sutter told the defense, like, I want you to be responsible, but we still need to, activate. And I thought, oh, maybe this is a sign of good things to come. Not so much.
No, definitely exception, not the rule. I mean, and you're right. I mean, those 50-some games where we didn't really see that or saw it so rarely, which is interesting to me because the mantra has always been, pace of play and playing faster, and they don't do that at all. They sure as hell did it last year under Sutter, but this year it's like, obviously it's personnel changes, but it's like, man, this is a slow, plodding, ineffective team. Far too many nights.
And I think that's why we're struggling scoring. I mean, how many slow teams like that do you think? I mean, have you ever feared offensively? None.
In this day and age, absolutely none. Maybe in the late 90s, but I mean, this is awful. And I mean, like, it's really frustrating because people are clamoring for some offensive creativity and to see things happen, and like they're so slow. Like they're just, and not just the way they skate. I mean, because they have a few fairly quick skaters. They just don't play the game with any pace at all. And I just find that so strange based on what the message has always been.
I also believe you can also have like some of the not fast moving skaters, and still play a fast game by moving the puck. Yeah, right. Exactly. And I wouldn't say last year we were that fast of a team. Really, the only fast guy we lost from last year's roster was Johnny Gaudreau. Kachuk is not a good hockey skater.
No,
he's not a good skater. He's not
as Monahan. Even when healthy, he's not a good skater.
No, Gabranson we didn't lose speed there. We didn't lose speed on, we did not lose speed last year with the exception of Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah.
And I think we've added Pelletier this year who has that same speed. Maybe not, he's obviously not as offensively dynamic, but I mean, we're probably like not a slower team this year, but we're playing way slower because we're not moving the puck at all with any. God, it just looks sloppy lately. Just
no, it's brutal. And also like that whole, age-old mantra of you got to shoot to score, and it doesn't mean anything anymore. I don't care if we ever shoot another opponent because the quality of shots is pathetic. Like 40-some shots a game is absolutely meaningless in 2023 in the NHL is what I've learned because the quality is pathetic.
And I used to be a proponent of like, hey,
so did I.
If you outshoot, you win, or you win more than you're going to lose. You're going to win a pretty high percentage. And I still probably will believe that to an extent until it's probably proven wrong over another season. But this year, when I go through the game charts after the games, I look for scoring chances. Like I go right to that now because really nothing else matters,
It's true.
High danger chances is really all that matters right now. And quite honestly, we suck at converting on those too.
Yep. Sure do. No finish.
I don't know. This Arizona game was maddening. Backlund gets a goal on the goal right away. I had to laugh a little bit. Did you see how hard Majapani was trying to touch that puck?
Yeah, can you blame him based on the year he's had?
No. I just thought it was funny. I
enjoyed it. It looked like a slow motion replay watching the puck cross the line.
It's like, God damn, I gotta touch that thing. I haven't scored in 340 days. I gotta. Oh, then we see Kadri and his huge turnover, and I could make a list of players that I was not happy with their play last night. But what scares me the most, Kyle, is like they knew Winnipeg lost when they went onto the ice. They knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then we got an effort like that.
Yeah,
that's what we get. We're gonna draw within 4 points of Winnipeg, and we get. We'd have been 4 points back at Winnipeg, and that's the effort we get.
It's pretty telling, really. Now, what exactly it tells you, I mean, you can look at any number of ways. The fact that the coaching has been ineffective, at least of late. Well, for quite some time, I guess I would argue at this point. The players like Cgy, and I'll let you take the lead on that, but is seemingly checked out. His pace of play is not there. He's not making good decisions with the puck. There's just so many things that lack of effort encompasses, and it's like, what is this team doing? Like, what's the point in winning a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game? So again, we can finish in dead center of the NHL, miss the playoffs, and have a middling draft pick. Like, again, it's mediocrity. It's completely directionless. So tell me, since we're there, and you often take the lead in these questions, this is my favorite question I get to ask you because I know where you're going. How do you feel about Nazem Kadri right now?
I'm puzzled.
I expected an angrier answer, but I like the methodical approach as well. So
you're going to get probably some anger here as I speak. Okay, he's got 0 goals in his last 12 games.
Yep.
He actually, let me pull up the stats here. I believe he's got 8 assists over those 12 games. It's frustrating, but you know what frustrates me the most about Nazem Kadri right now is something's like not right. He's lazy. His line changes are what I mean. I know that everybody's gonna be like, "You're worried about his line changes and he hasn't scored in 12 games." Well, no, I'm looking at his mannerisms.
Looking at the totality of the player, I would argue.
And when he goes to change on a line change, I guarantee you, back when I played hockey, I would have got my ass reamed out by the coach for a lazy line change like he does. He just doesn't look like he's engaged. He's not engaged at all. He's turning over the puck. Some would argue, I mean, I could say he pretty much, I can't say he lost the game for us last night because it was a team effort of sucking that lost it, but that's a pretty big turnover to allow a shorthanded goal at that stage of the game. That's a big turnover. And yes, I know players are going to make turnovers and that's going to happen. But all I've heard in Calgary, and it's been justified to an extent. All I've heard for the last freaking month is, what the hell's wrong with Jonathan Huberdeau? God damn, this guy, we should have never got him, and we got this contract for 8 more years, and da 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 da. Well, holy crap, we've got Nazem Kadri at $7 million for 7 more years, and I can tell you right now that I'm going to put money down that Huberdeau's contract ages better than Kadri's.
100%. There's no question at all about that. Especially when Huberdeau's back in this left wing in a position to succeed. I mean, he's just way too skilled. Now you'd think Cgy is as well, but one thing I noticed actually, and kind of thought of more as you were speaking just now. Nazem Kadri spends a lot of time wasting his energy, complaining over penalty calls, breaking his stick on the bench. And if there's any player in Calgary who was amazing, probably the best I ever watched play at channeling his anger and frustration into better play, it was Jarome Iginla. And Nazem Kadri does not seem to have that.
Nope.
And if he did, because he has a similar... Yeah,
he's got a poor attitude right now. It's, I won the cup last year. I was along for the ride, and I won the cup, and now this year we're not winning, and poor me.
Well, remember when he said, if anybody thought he was a liability, can kiss his ass after he won the cup? He was right, 100%. But if you ask me right now, I think he is a liability. Not just because of that egregious giveaway. He has not been good otherwise. And
we're all over these other players on this team, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Jonathan Huberdeau is not producing at the rate we need him to produce. Now that has changed a little bit, and it's getting better. It's not great, but it's getting better. In the last 5 games, Huberdeau has 4 points in the last 5 games, and in the last 10 games, he has 6 points. Not great by any means, but it's better. And I sit and I look at this roster, and I got Dylan Dubé with 1 goal in the last 12. I've got Tyler Toffoli 1 goal in the last 7, albeit I have to kind of give him a pass on that because he's been
carrying the offense mostly.
Carrying the offense. Yeah. We've got Andrew Mangiapane, 0 goals in 10 games, and I don't feel like he's even close to scoring.
No. There was a chance. Was it 2-on-1 last night? They just completely fouled the puck, just shot it right into the goalie's chest. It's like, okay.
fighting at something fierce right now.
You know, it's funny though too. I don't know if you saw, but somebody tweeted complaining about Trevor Lewis and maybe Lucic as well, and about how they're they're costing the Flames games, right? So Trevor Lewis's wife responded and made a comment like, "Oh yeah, like his 8 minutes of ice time is really costing the team," and she's absolutely right. I mean, these guys get their heads beat in some nights in terms of matchups, and that's fine. But I'm not worried about Trevor Lewis. I'm worried about guys like Cgy, Mangiapane, Huberdeau. Like they're the ones who are supposed to be supplying the offense.
The big guns are not getting us anything, and I don't expect them to make I don't expect Jonathan Huberdeau to rattle off the points he did last year. I don't. No. And I don't even think Cgy will get the points he got last year. And I think in signing him, I don't even think we expected him to be a 100-point guy. But I didn't expect him to be a lazy, whiny player.
No, right? And here we are. And that type of attitude is infectious, right? We've all been guilty of it at different points in our lives, I'm sure. But yeah, it's not good.
People were talking about he should be the captain of this team. Like seriously, 6 months ago, people were saying, "Oh, Nazem Kadri, he's a leader, man. He should be the leader of this team." Well, good God.
No, thank you.
I don't want that. Do you?
No, definitely not. I don't think anybody in their right mind would at this point, especially. But it's also really presumptuous to ever say that somebody should be captain of a team when they never played a game for them, right? I never liked that.
No, I don't either. I do know they have to get going because listen to this. When Kadri and Huberdeau have 0 points, we're 3-15-2. When they have 1 point, we're 16-3-5. And when they both have when they each have 2 points, we're 6-0. These guys gotta be going for us. Well, you know what? And it's not just the Flames. If your top 2 lines or your top line aren't going, is there a team in the league that's successful having their 4th line carry the weight? No,
of course not.
You know, as much as I rip on Lucic and I rip on, you know, I've been very critical of him this year, and I think deservedly so for the most part. I don't think I'm in the wrong there. But you know what? Lewis and Dewar and Lucic, quite honestly, last night were not the reason we lost.
No, definitely not.
Do I think they should have been put out there as much as they were put out there last night?
God, no.
No, I don't.
No, and then to, to put Lucic on the top line like that, like.
Do you think that? Okay, now I did see that, but it was very short-lived. People,
it was, but you know what?
Maybe that was a little overblown, but
yeah, but you could take the Jack Adams trophy right off his shelf for being that dumb. Like, what did you think that was going to do? Like, let's just be honest with it just for a second. You're right; it was brief, it was fleeting. What the fuck are you thinking? Why would you ever do that? It's never worked.
Why do we keep running them out there? I mean, you know what? Quite honestly, as much as I've ripped on Lucic this year, I'm going to defend him right now. I don't even think we're being fair to him. He's in the lineup every single night. At his age, he needs a break once in a while. My God, we're running him out there. He's playing 3-4 minutes more than he should be playing every single night.
Yeah.
And Trevor Lewis has been good. He's exactly he's doing more than what we're paying for him.
Yep, exactly. But again, it's just really, really poor, really poor player usage, deployment. Like, I'm not blaming Lucic for why he's out there, but he should not be out there, and that falls on the coach.
One thing I know that's irritating you, and it's asset management, and it raised its head last night when we watched Valimaki, and I thought Connor Mackey had a good night last night too. And I know we wanted to talk about this a little bit today, and I think we need to. It's tough. It's tough when you see a guy like Yusuf Valimaki have a real strong night against us and look like a top 4 D man.
Yeah, he's our number 1 D man right now.
Yeah, I know. You want to know something though, and this is not degrading against Valimaki. I look at their roster and I watch hockey every night. Like my wife, I don't even know why she's with me anymore because of how much hockey I watch. But like, I didn't even know like half their roster.
Yeah, lots of Mike Gold's on Twitter for us to tell you all about the Arizona Coyotes because nobody else other than him that I know of cares about them.
You know, we got this Maselli guy or whatever. It's like he lights up the Flames every time we play him, and I don't even know who this guy is. Where is he from?
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that. I mean, there is obviously a pretty serious lack of depth in the Coyotes and a lot of really young players. But Valimaki looks exactly like what he was drafted to be. And that's where it becomes problematic. And we talked about this before about how he wasn't going to pan out in Calgary. I mean, maybe had there been a coaching change or something different about the defense makeup at the time, but it doesn't make it any easier to deal with just to say he wasn't going to pan out in Calgary. I know he had a major injury and kind of had fallen down the depth chart, but it's really, really poor asset management in any case when you lose somebody that skilled for nothing, and that's exactly what happened. Connor Mackey, to a lesser extent, because I still think he has a fairly bright future. He was brutal. He was brutal with the Flames. Like, just completely lost out there.
He was brutal this year with the Flames for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Then he was yanked from the lineup, and we never saw him again, and then he was traded. But last year, we all thought Connor Mackey was going to be fine. And
I expected him to supplant Michael Stone in the depth chart, actually.
So did I. I did too. And as for Juuso Valimaki, I mean, he struggled in Calgary. He had some really good signs. I mean, I went as far as predicting him as rookie of the year a few years ago. I did. I thought he was going to have a breakout year. I thought he was going to be amazing. He's dealt with some injuries, some serious ones. And I understood why we lost him. I mean, the Flames were in a tough situation. We had to decide between Connor Mackey and Juuso Valimaki and which one was going to go through waivers. We chose for the more expensive one to lose. We chose to lose the more expensive one to save cap space. Is really what happened.
Yeah.
And we lost him. Was it the right decision? No. In hindsight, no, it wasn't. I see why they made that decision, because he was making, I believe, $1.2 million and not playing. And when he did play, it was brutal. So I get it. And I know he wasn't cohesive with the coach. And I don't know who. It could be his fault. It could be the coach's fault. I don't know on that one. But
I think his leash was too short was part of the problem. He had a good game fairly good game, I believe, against the Bruins, if I remember right. But I think he made one mistake, and then it's like, bang, you're gone. It's like that's not effective coaching with young players. I mean, they're going to make mistakes, obviously, but much like Connor Mackey, to your point, he had a terrible 2-week stretch. One of the worst I've seen from a Flames defenseman in a long time. Like, I was thinking back to bring him up again.
Your tweets to me were
they're aggressive. But it made me think of when we had guys like Douglas Murray, Anders Eriksson, Nick Grossman for that little spell to start that season. Like, they were so bad. And so was Mackey. But as a young player who had the pedigree of, he's a talented college player, you can't give up on them that easy. You just can't. And that's one of the mistakes this team makes, is they just, and whether it's Sutter or Tree Living, both, I guess in this case, especially with Valimaki, it is kind of both. They gave him up for nothing. And it scares me, because we have guys like Jeremy Poirier with the Wranglers, who was like an unbelievable defenseman his first year pro. And I'm really scared they're going to screw it up with him too.
Oh, no, I don't think they're going to be able to screw up. He's going to have to be on our roster next year, just so we can be under the cap.
Yeah, possibly so. So hopefully it's going along.
I've been looking at cap friendly, and
there's a lot of tweets about it today, and especially where the team is performing the way that they are. There's a lot of stuff on Twitter today about the Flames cap situation, and basically no matter what they do, they're going to be over.
And they are. But you know what? In defense of that, though, so is half the league.
Oh yeah, it's an absolute mess. Yeah, the other thing too, like, speaking of the league,
this isn't just a Calgary Flames suck problem. This is like, we're just throwing darts at everything that we can find that sucks in this organization right now, and it's not hard. It's not hard to find them, because they're there. I mean, when we start losing, we all find stuff. We're all guilty of it. We find stuff, man, and I don't know. I'm. Kyle, I probably would have argued harder on asset management with you until what I've seen over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
You know what? I agree with you more on deployment.
Yeah, we had some disagreements, and I appreciate the fact you were more patient with it than I was. And I mean that sincerely, because the deployment side of it, I was pointing to that a while ago, and it's gotten worse, it seems, or not so much worse as it's continued to go on like it has when it should have changed. I kind of said that about, like, Paul and Walker Duer out of the lineup, like, just made no sense. One of the only guys other than Pelletier bringing you a ton of energy, actually scoring a few goals, throwing his weight around, was fast. That was a dumb dumb move. There's no other way to
more goals than Jacob Pelletier.
Yeah, that doesn't really surprise me. Pelletier will get there. And I mean, we've already seen signs of that with him. But when you have a team like we've talked about that plays with so little pace, and you have guys like Cgy that just don't seem that interested, you need guys in your lineup that are interested, that are engaged, that are driving play in the right. Yeah, the one that really pushed me over the edge was scratching Walker Dewar. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And then I was scared. Now, thankfully, Nick Ritchie's come out. He won't be back. We can be sure of that, unless it's for league minimum. But I would not bring him back either. Like,
I would not bring him back. And
know,
one of the things I know a lot of people on Twitter too, or Flames Twitter, are screaming why Ruzicka's not in the lineup, and like,
yeah,
I honestly, I mean, as much as I've always loved his talent, I just don't like his speed of play, and he just looks like he's just, I don't know what even the word is. I hate to call somebody, nonchalant or not trying hard, because I'm not in their shoes.
Well, I mean, that's essentially what it looks like, though.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, that's what we've always said. I mean, the knock against Manal scouting reports, as I mentioned before, was his work ethic. But here again, he has like 20 points. You need to sit him for like 2 months straight. Does that make any sense at all?
I would honestly, right now, if I had to script our fourth line, and God knows, everybody that's listening to this podcast is going, shut up, you guys. The fourth line's not the problem. Or top guys aren't scoring. I know, we just got done complaining about that. Now we're on to the fourth line. I would have Ruzicka centering Dewar and Lewis. I'm sorry, that's where I would be.
Nothing to be sorry for. It makes sense to me. I don't mind having a savvy vet like Trevor Lewis in the lineup. That's when you saddle him with a guy like Lucic and don't give him anything to work with. Not that he's going to do much with it, but I mean, he can carry his own with the right line mates. At least he's shown in the past. I'm trying not to go back to the Lucci thing, but like, when you dump and chase and you can't get in there quick enough to chase, it's kind of hard to. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I do have one question for you, though, on Jacob Pelletier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to preface it by saying I'm super happy he's in the roster. I'm super happy where he's being placed. And I love watching him play. And he's got energy. And you know what has impressed me the most about him this year? Is he's been very, very defensively responsible. Been one of our best defensive forwards. I would even go on a limb to say that.
Yep.
He's been amazing in that aspect. Stealing pucks, takeaways in the neutral zone. He's been great. He's been great with that. But I sit and I look and I'm like, I feel like he should have more points. Am I out of line by feeling that way, Kyle? And I mean that sincerely. I want to know, am I being too hard on a young player?
No, because I think when you look at how he's played and all the metrics surrounding his play, if you're an advanced stats guy, which neither of us really are, but they will show you that he probably should have more points than he does. It also indicates that the points will come. So based on everything that's going on, I think it's realistic to have expected a little bit more in that regard, but it's not uncommon. And I always think, for whatever reason, one example in my head is Alex Hemsky when he started with the Oilers. He was doing like nothing scoring wise, and he turned into a really good NHL scoring winger, but it took quite a bit of time. Pelletier, I don't think it's going to take a whole lot more time. I expect him to be probably getting pretty hot before the end of the season, and then hopefully carried into next year. But I don't think it's unfair to have expected more, but it's also understandable that it hasn't been there.
Like I've been had. I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm not happy with this play, because I am. But yep. I guess what scares me is where he's got, in 21 games, he's got 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. But he's got 0 points in his last 5. And honestly, I thought he's been good in the last 5.
Yeah, he's still playing well. It just, the puck doesn't always go in the net for you, right? His play, like, as upset as I was about Dewar coming out of the lineup, to see that with Pelletier would probably really push me over the edge. Because he's doing everything right, just not seeing the results.
Yeah, I agree. I you know what? I can finally say this. I don't think he's going anywhere. Do you?
No, absolutely not. Makes no sense. If anything, we need more of him. And guys like Connor Zara come to mind. I mean, we need to see more of those guys in the lineup.
I agree. I agree. So now let's switch gears and let's talk about the playoffs. And if there is, This is probably the absolute worst time. We probably should have recorded this segment of the show yesterday, because I'm not going to say I had a ton of hope yesterday, but I had a little hope yesterday.
Yeah.
And now today, after last night and only getting 1 point to Arizona, I don't know. I feel defeated.
As you should, as we all should.
And I feel
we're not here to sell false hope. We're not a religious organization. We're we're here to tell like it is. You said we're going to talk some truth, and I think that is the truth. I mean, obviously, it's still mathematically possible. There's a fair amount of games left, but when you put yourself in this position and you piss points away against teams like Anaheim and Arizona, this is what you're going to get.
Well,
Winnipeg's been better. So they lost last night, but yeah, you can't rely on other teams to get you into the playoffs. That's like the Flames have put themselves in just the most horrific position. They have no control over their own fate other than just trying to basically win 12 of their remaining 16 games to maybe have a chance. Like, it's ridiculous.
Here's the rundown. The Flames have 14 games left. We're 1 point behind Nashville, who has 17 games left.
Who sold at the deadline, but is still ahead of the Flames.
Yeah. We are 7 points behind Seattle, who has 15 games left. We are 8 points behind Edmonton, who has 14 games left. And we're 5 points behind Winnipeg, who has 14 games left. If you want to talk bright spots, Nashville has a really tough schedule, albeit extra games. It's a really tough schedule with 4 back-to-backs, which is a lot of back-to-backs compared to anybody else. Winnipeg, 7 at home, 7 on the road. Edmonton, 7 at home, 7 on the road. Seattle, 7 at home, 8 on the road. Oh, man, I don't know. 5 points is a lot to
That's a huge amount. It's huge. 3 points would be a lot.
The talk is, okay, Winnipeg was on pace to getting 97 points as of yesterday, which is a lot to make it, because I thought 95 was going to be kind of that magic number. With their loss last night, I believe that moved them down to that 96 point range. Calgary would have to, well, we're at 74 points now, and we have 14 games left. We're going to have to, we can only lose a couple more games. Yep. Mathematically. I mean, I don't have the math right in front of me, but I think if we lose more than 4 games, we're done.
Guaranteed.
Right around there. I mean, mathematically, we're even done. I think, realistically, right now, I don't want to say we're done, but gosh, like this, the problem is, like, I look at that on paper and I probably think, we could do this. But then I look at what we've watched on the ice lately and I think we could do this, but not with this team. Right?
Nope. Not happening. Possible, but it's just it makes me think of those underachieving teams in the late 2000s and the early 2010s where, like, they just couldn't get it done. And that's we could get into a thorough analysis, some of which we already have, but I mean, they just don't click. They don't have it. Their best players get cold. The player deployment, like I said, is and we talked about this before. I won't go too far down this road, but I am at this point fully in favor of a coaching change over the summer. And I'm sick of them. I'm tired of new coaches. I really am. But the player deployment's been terrible. Walker Dewar should be playing. Ruzicka deserved another chance. The mismanagement of probably both Valimaki and Mackey from the GM's perspective as well as the coach. Like, we have to get better at integrating young players in the lineup. Like, all the teams that have won cups last year, that's what they do. And Calgary is just not very good at it. So to believe we're still going to make the playoffs or to think that there's hope, sure, there's some hope. But I think by next week's show, we're going to be able to say formally this is it. Because I don't see – there's no reason to believe they're going to go on a winning streak because they haven't done it all goddamn year.
No, they haven't shown
all
us
year.
And we have 4 games this week. So, all right, I agree. Next week, we will be able to – we'll put the final nail in the coffin. Probably.
Yeah, there's still people on Twitter. Like, God love them. They still believe. They're still tweeting. They feel.
And I want to, you guys. I want to so bad. Kyle, I wanted to get on the show today, and I wanted to run. I actually made this little chart up yesterday afternoon, and I wanted to go through it today and be like, "See, Kyle, I think this can happen. I think this can happen."
Absolutely.
But I can't rightfully look at this today after what happened last night, and and be able to sell you on this miracle comeback, because I don't even know how I would do that. And, as for the comment you made earlier, I wanted to touch on that a little bit. I've always been pro Daryl Sutter, and it almost feels like it breaks my heart to say that I'm not happy with him. But his deployment this year there's been a lot of nights I've been like, man, I'm angry like I was at Jeff Ward.
Yeah, Jeff Ward
which was freaking angry. But I'm feeling that, and I don't know if a coaching change will happen. And you know what? If I had to put money on it, I'd say it doesn't. But something has got to click, and maybe something's got to happen where we see the light. And you know what? I don't think all of us fans or whatever have all the answers either. And we can say, hey, well, I do this for a fourth line, and I do this, and I do this, and who the hell knows if it would work?
Mm-hmm.
But I do know what's happening now isn't working
at all. It's
so
redundant.
Like, if I had to vote right now, do I want Sutter gone? I probably would say yes, but who are we getting? Do I want Treliving gone? No, I don't. And has there been blunders? Yes. But you name me a general manager out there that has never had blunders. It's not out there.
More hits than misses, I think.
And I think, one of the things that I think a lot of people forget, and I know you commented on it yesterday. I can't remember where I saw your comment, but Treliving has a pretty darn good track record of being able to re-sign players at pretty good value contracts. And I think that gets forgotten.
That was discussion with Mike Gold talking about Elias Lindholm's value. That's $7 million-ish market value. Or sorry, no, 8.5. And I came back and said, I think they could get done for 7. And Mike said, that'd be an accomplishment. And he's absolutely right. It would.
It would be.
But he's shown he can do it. And I think in a case like that, if they can start to tinker with this team and make Lindholm want to be here, which I think he does as of now anyway, I think they get that done, because I think he's a competitive player. And we've said it before a million times in this show, and you see it everywhere else. There's no teams want to Stanley Cup with a player making X amount of dollars, so it's 10 plus or whatever.
No.
Like, you have to get your players to want to take some kind of a hometown discount if they want to win.
You touched on it a little bit ago. You got to build a team where you have a strong core at a value prices, along with 3 or 4 or 3 entry level deals where you're getting production from them. And then you can have a team that can fit under the cap and can win and be productive. It's a balancing act, and it's not an easy job. And 31 other teams want to win the Stanley Cup, but what is happening in Calgary right now isn't working.
No.
And we're going to have plenty of time this summer on the show is discussing what we would do and what moves we would make, because God knows there's going to need to be something done. Just to fit under the cap, something's going to have to be done. So
it's going to be another interesting summer in Calgary for sure.
It is. We'll be right back to preview the week ahead. Get all your Flames Unfiltered podcasts, team news, team updates, and highlights at flamesunfiltered.com. 4 games ahead for the Flames this week, and just when I wanted to watch 4 games, I wanted it to be meaningful games, and I'm not sure that they are anymore.
If they win all 4, it might be.
Kyle, are you trying to get my hopes up again here now? What are you doing?
We need some. I mean, I know it's not going to happen. We need some positivity. I'd love to eat crow on this one, obviously.
I want to be so wrong. I want to come on the show next week and be like, we're 1 back of Winnipeg, and Nashville's dropped 4 straight, and look at us.
Yep.
I want that. It starts Thursday. Calgary goes to Vegas. The good news is here, we won last time in Vegas. That'd be the only good news, because Vegas is the leaders in the Pacific. 3rd of 4 meetings. We split the first 2. Yes, 1-goal games. Each team won 1. Then Saturday night, Dallas comes to town for a hockey night in Canada battle. Dallas, of course, another first-place team. They are first in the Central, but they've been struggling, though, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely stumbling a little bit there.
3rd and final meeting between the 2. Flames won both games this year, both 1-goal games, but have won them both, so that's good news. And then the back-to-back that's going to either really sink the ship or give us hope. And that's Calgary at LA on Monday and then Calgary and Anaheim on Tuesday. LA, holy cow, second in the Pacific, 9 out of 10 or points in 9 of their last 10 games. It's a good hockey team.
Very good hockey team. Yeah, very, and one that, turned things around fairly quickly, from the Stanley Cup winning days to the bit of a rebuild they've done. So somebody picked them, I saw on Twitter today, as a dark horse for Stanley Cup, and I could get behind that.
Corpusalo's been good there.
Quick's been great in Vegas, too.
He hasn't lost yet. He's been really
Boy, he's so fucking angry.
Why can't we get somebody angry like that?
Well, we have lots of angry people. They're just like me. They just waste it.
What are we going to do? Oh, I saw a tweet last night. Tony Allen put, Sutter was wrong about Valimaki. He was wrong about Lucic.
I saw this, yeah.
Wrong about moving Huberdeau off of his off wing.
Yeah.
Wrong about using winner you're in with the goalies. Makes you wonder how much he's been wrong about this season. Oh.
Everything he touched last year turned to gold, and great example, it's like Branson and Zadorov as a pairing. Everything he did was just friggin' magic, and this year it has got to
be the most unlucky year ever. And I'm not saying that we haven't made our luck either, because I think we have. Yeah. But have you ever seen a team hit the post like this? Have you ever seen a team? I mean, we have, oh my gosh.
Well, what if they lost 22 1-goal games?
Yeah.
44 points. Roughly, whatever it actually is, I can't remember. There's so many I can't remember.
We'd be the best team in the league if we got half of them. I
still don't think we'd be as good as, might be slightly ahead of the Bruins.
Think about that.
Think about how good the Bruins are based on that stat. That's nuts.
So do we give up on this team? Maybe we're not that bad. Are we just that unlucky?
Nah, I don't know. Are lacking severely.
There is aspects we're lacking.
Yeah, but again, if we won half those games, if we had league average goaltending all year, there's all kinds of little tiny things that happen to make this. Hey, we're going to be in the playoffs. Can we actually knock somebody off? Versus holy shit, we suck. So
last night looked like holy shit, we suck.
Oh, it was bad. Man, it was bad. And, there's a lot of little tweaks I do want to see. Now, I suspect some guys are going to get moved out this summer. I hope like hell they actually do make Backlund captain. There's some things around this team that I just think I don't like not having a captain. I never have.
I don't usually care, but I think he's earned it though. Now I think he's earned it.
I think this. I don't know. There's just so many little things that can be done around this group. I don't even feel like we know what we have right now, other than a team that is just really underachieving. So I think they have to look at the coaching staff, at least look at it. And then the big question, the biggest one of all, as it relates to that and everything else, really is Brad Treliving, and if he's back or not. So,
I hope they get that figured out sooner than later.
Well, you think about it, even if they miss the playoffs, which we've both agreed they're going to at this point, he turned the worst summer ever into a summer where at least brought in some marketable high-end players. Didn't pan out like we hoped, but if he trots out that same. Yeah, but he trots out that same team this past season with nothing but prospects and picks to show for those assets that left. Look at it this way, okay? So Johnny Gaudreau leaves town, and Treliving turned that situation by trading Kachuk. He turned that to more than Jay Feaster got from Jerome McGinley and Joe Ovister.
Exactly.
You traded both players and got the worst trade return we've seen since Mark Savard, and then further back, maybe Dion Phaneuf, but it could have been so much worse. At least we have some marquee names we can potentially do something around, right?
Yeah.
And actually, yeah. Before we sign off, though, I want to point something out too. There's a lot of talk right now because Frank Cervelli was on with the Barn Burner podcast, talking about Johnny Gaudreau leaving Calgary, and apparently, do you see that?
I know. I actually have it flagged on my phone to listen to today.
Okay, so I won't ruin it completely, but the big take.
No, I want go. Let's go. I want to know.
First of all, I find Cervelli can be fairly smug because he talks like one of those guys who just knows exactly what happened, and I don't think this is entirely the case. But what he says is that John was committed. The Flames thought he was committed. He went for a drive with his wife. They had a really teary-eyed, difficult conversation. called the Flames back basically in tears and said he was going to move on. So, first of all, that already insinuates that this is strictly a family matter and it was his wife's decision. And I didn't like any of that because in any relationship, it takes two, okay? It also it also puts in a situation, which I never thought was entirely fair, that it's entirely on Gaudreau's camp that negotiations fell apart, which I don't think we entirely know. I've heard a lot of different things about the Flame side of it, maybe what they did wrong. The point of what I'm saying is that he comes out and says this past week, and it's like, once again, back in the news is the fact Johnny Gaudreau left Calgary almost a year ago. It's like, do we really need to keep talking about this?
I'm not going to lie. When I saw that, I thought, I don't care anymore about Johnny Gaudreau.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think it was a family decision? I do. I think both of them made it together. And
largely, for sure.
Based on their family, right? I do think what the Flames, from what I've been reported from multiple good sources, that what the Flames offered was fair market value for Johnny Gaudreau.
Oh, the money, yeah, it was for sure.
So they did their job there. I'm not saying how it was along the way, but in the end, they offered a very lucrative package. He turned it down, and he's gone. And I wish in Calgary, and I think the fan base has been pretty good about forgetting about it.
Yeah, for the most part.
Can't wait till we just don't need to hear about it anymore. And see, now one of the things that's good for next year is that next year we won't hear, well, Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau, we won't hear that next year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. It's it's just one of those situations where it's like it still stings when I see how badly they need some high-end skill in their lineup on the nights where it really seems like it's lacking. I don't know everything about the negotiations leading up to the point that it fell apart. I just know that that final offer could have been after several maybe lowball offers. Like I've heard different things about it. The point is that once again the media has drugged this back to the forefront in a time where we already have lots to be miserable about with the Flames. So doesn't really benefit anybody. I mean, I saw he had a big goal in Columbus last night. Obviously their season is lost, but hopefully he's enjoying playing there and he's closer to family and all that. I just want to see that chapter closed. We all had a hard time with it, and I just don't see a need to dredge it up like that because everybody's like retweeting that video of Saravelli talking, and I still encourage you to watch it. Anybody who has,
I'm gonna actually,
but it just makes me think like, come on, like guys, like enough. The season's lost for us too. Like let's just let it go.
And I think it's probably part of the healing process though, is to get this completely purged out of our system. And I don't know. I there was a lot of days that if you asked me, I wouldn't have re-signed Johnny Gaudreau, and then there was a lot of days that I would have. You
really turned a corner on him after that playoff performance. I felt. I remember you basically raised your hand to God and said, I was wrong about him.
I did, because I did, every time I'd see a playoff performance, it was brutal. Yeah. And so I did it. It took a while, but I came a long way with Johnny Gaudreau. And another thing that worried me a lot is like, well, how was he going to handle being with, playing like a Sutter, playing the Sutter system too. And he was great with it. So, I mean, there was a lot of things that changed me over the year. I mean,
but isn't it strange? You just kind of pointed this out to me as you're talking. Isn't it strange? We all had concerns about how a player of Johnny's skill set, size, whatever, would perform in a drill Sutter. And he was a world beater, one of the best players on the planet. And then you get a guy that we all think is tailor-made, like Nazem Kadri, playing for Sutter, and it's just like, meh. Now, he was really good early in the season, but how strange is that to really think about it?
He was pretty good in the beginning of the season. I would agree, but boy, it's just.
But who saw that coming?
I don't know. But you can't. Here's the thing, though, Kyle. I know we'll get rolling here because people don't want to listen to us too much longer. But like you can't coach attitude, though, and to me. And obviously, I'm not in the room, and I'm not, sitting behind the bench next to that lady that sits there. I don't know his attitude on the bench. I don't know his interactions with other players, but his mannerisms on the ice are shit.
Yep, I agree.
And you know what? When your mannerisms on the ice are shit, usually your play is shit.
Yep, absolutely.
And I don't know how else to say that any more polite. It's just, that's what it is. And Nazem Kadri has got to figure it out, because we got 7 more years, and I don't want 7 more years of this shit.
Nope. None of us do. I suspect he will be better, but I mean, it starts with Starts with his attitude from the eye test anyway. It doesn't seem to be overly positive, and he's one of the guys in this team that's kind of on to be a leader, so hopefully that changes. Right. Now, I'm kind of assuming a little bit there, but, you see it.
And I don't know. Everything cycles, doesn't it?
I honestly thought you were going to say everything sucks right now.
It does. Everything does suck.
We're trying really hard on the show to be positive in a time about the Flames, and it's hard to be positive. But, as you pointed out earlier, just a game. There's more important things in life. And the nice thing about sports is they're not going anywhere. It can always get better.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't even know anymore. It's hard to be positive.
Hey, we're smiling. Let's end it while we can on a high note.
I set my phone down a couple times last night. I'm like, nope, can't write that. Can't type that.
I just threw mine.
Oh, man. Kyle and I are back next week to update the playoff situation and see if there is a pipe dream ahead of this team. Odds are we'll be screwing that coffin shut next week, but you know what? Maybe they'll go on. Kyle thinks they're going to win 4 in a row here. Let's go with it, right?
Not say
have a good week, Flames fans, and we'll be back next week.
See you guys.
Get connected. Flames Unfiltered can be found on Twitter at Flame Unfiltered. Check out the Facebook page at Flames Unfiltered. Host Brad Burud is on Twitter at Brad Burud, and host Kyle Lewis is on Twitter at VanLewis14. Like what you hear? Rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Flames Unfiltered can be found on all the major podcast players. Want to watch the show? You got it. Check out Inside Edge Hockey Media Group for every show. Subscribe while you watch. Thanks for listening, watching, and interacting. Enjoy the hockey action.
We call them playoff! Yeah, baby! Playoff! Yeah, baby!
Thanks for tuning in to Flames Unfiltered. Check back for more action-packed Calgary Flames talk. This episode of Flames Unfiltered was copyrighted and produced by Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.